days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.
The governor of Maryland issued a statement today.
This morning, with deep pride and soberness, I will pardon over 175,000 convictions.
Yes, 175,000 citizens, human beings, citizens of Maryland will have their marijuana convictions pardoned. And joining us right now to talk about how this happened, why this happened, and what it will mean is the governor of the great state of Maryland, Wes Moore. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show.
Oh, hello. It's good to talk to you.
You know, when we think about leaders, people who say things that they're going to do and then actually do them, signing that today, why was that important, and why did you even make that promise coming in to the governor's mansion?
You know, we came in saying that that leave no one behind is not a campaign slogan. It's a governance philosophy. This is how we move. And the only way you can move forward is if you're also honest about your past. You know, now Maryland just voted to be able to have a recreational cannabis market, voted overwhelmingly that we are going to decriminalize cannabis and create a recreational market. And over the first 18 months of our administration, we have rolled out what many say is the most equitable and the smoothest and the fairest cannabis rollout that this country has seen. But here's the thing I also know, is that you cannot talk about the benefits of legalization if you are not willing to wrestle with the consequences of criminalization. That we have people whose lives have been upended. And you know, and listen, I had handcuffs on my wrist when I was 11 years old. But the thing I also know is this, is I was still able to move throughout life without that weight and without that burden continuing to shackle me. For many people who are walking around with misdemeanor cannabis convictions, they don't have that luxury. They haven't been able to get pathways to work. They have not had pathways to get student loans and to go to school. They haven't had pathways to get mortgage applications and for housing. And so what this did today, this is the most sweeping mass pardon for misdemeanor cannabis in the history of this country. And what it did today was show for those 175,000 convictions that history does matter. And if you want to have an inclusive economy, if you want to make sure that people can properly participate, if you want to make sure that every sentence is not a life sentence, then we've got to wrestle with the fact that we have had a failure of a war on drugs, and cannabis has been used as a cudgel, particularly against Black communities and communities of color. And so this is our chance to be able to get this moment right. And I think that's exactly what Maryland did today.
And the people did vote. 67% voted in 2022 to legalize recreational use of marijuana. Governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey, she issued a sweeping pardon, not this sweeping, that would have convicted those who were convicted of simple possession of cannabis would have a pardon. Also, I believe Oregon in 2022, Kate Brown announced that there will be a pardon of 45,000 convicted of simple possession of marijuana. What's the difference, Governor, between a pardon and an expungement of their records? This is something Shauna Renee brought up this morning on Urban View Mornings. Why not clear the records? Or is it the same?
Yeah. So what happened with these pardons is now each and every one of these individuals, they now have a gubernatorial pardon. So there's nothing else that they have to do. They can, when they go and check their records, they can look in their case file, or they can go to any of the public kiosks and any of the courthouses across the state of Maryland, and they can see that for that misdemeanor cannabis charge, that they now have a full gubernatorial pardon.
Does it say pardon on their record, or does it not exist? Because you know how people are, Governor Moore. Just because it says pardon doesn't mean that people are actually going to be forgiving.
No, that's exactly right. No, it says pardon now as they go through the process of the expungement. They actually then there's an application process that goes through a further expungement. But one we know is once they have a gubernatorial pardon for that, the expungement process is really more of a formality at that point. Once they have a gubernatorial pardon.
Can we talk about the scheduling? So cannabis, which is weird, it's a plant that grows out of the ground, was on the same level as heroin.
Mm-hmm. Right. Grows out of the ground, not manipulated, not altered, and was a Schedule I drug. It literally made absolutely no sense. And frankly, I mean, it's one of the reasons I think about the work of the Biden administration and the leadership that they've shown on this, of moving cannabis from a Schedule I to a Schedule III drug. For it to be, to your point, on the same level as altered and manipulated drugs made absolutely no sense, because that's not what cannabis is. And so
can we spend time in the sense of it? Because that was done politically on purpose, right? Target a particular.
That's right. And you look at how even the criminal justice laws around it were applied, how that was very intentional. I mean, you take a look at the way cannabis was used in our state, what we addressed with these sweeping pardons, where there are 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland. 3 of them, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Prince George's County, accounted for around 50% of the cannabis convictions. 24 jurisdictions, 3 of them accounted for around 50% of the cannabis convictions. And ironically, those 3 jurisdictions are either majority Black, almost majority people of color. So there's not a coincidence to what was happening here. And that's why this work today is really working to right a whole collection of historical wrongs, because we had a criminal justice system that was continuing to bolster up a policy that was actually having incredibly harmful effects and impacts on communities of color.
Governor Wes Moore is here, of course, the governor of the great state of Maryland, for the great state of Maryland. As you're talking, I'm also in the back of my head hearing the pushback, that those counties are predominantly Black, but they're also most criminal. There's a narrative that is fomented in this country around Black people and crime. We saw it at this Black church this week, when somebody asked about, how do we bring more economic justice inside of the Black community? The question was, we got to crack down on crime. How do you, in the position that you're in, fight this kind of, well, this is victimhood, you're just, you're rewarding bad behavior. Those communities were targeted because they're just more criminal. Look at the numbers. Governor Moore, look at the numbers.
Yeah. I think that I would say is, I was a kid who had handcuffs on my wrist when I was 11 years old, because I came up in communities that were over-policed, and we know it. That we knew that for the same thing that no one was paying attention to in other communities were the things that we were getting handcuffs on our wrist for. And this is a story. This is a long trodden story in our national narrative and in our national arc. And so the thing that I would tell people who are making these points or making these suggestions is, one, the data does not reinforce what they're saying. It's not like communities are hyper criminalized. They're hyper incarcerated, but there's not a hyper criminalization of what takes place, and there's no data that reinforces it. The second thing I would say to them is this: if they're serious about actually supporting the communities, do you know what you should do? Is find ways of infusing opportunity in those communities. If you're serious, and not just using it for political gain, but if you're serious about creating pathways for those communities to be able to thrive, then the way you do it is by creating pathways for work, wages, and wealth inside of those communities. Because one thing that you see in affluent neighborhoods, in high wealth neighborhoods, you know what you don't see? That same level of criminalization. You just don't. And so this is actually the way things like this, being able to address this issue of people who are walking around unable to get to school, unable to get a home, unable to get to work because of a misdemeanor cannabis charge. If you can address that, you're actually creating a pathway for them to be economically sustainable and an economic contributor. If you can do that, then you have a better way of making the society grow and thrive. And so for people who just want to make a political statement about the need for communities of color to be policed, I would argue that the data continues to reinforce that the best thing you can do for communities is actually introduce opportunity to them. That's the best way to help them thrive.
Unless that opportunity feels like oppression to you. We're talking with Governor Wes Moore. I met you at the other Wes Moore, your groundbreaking New York Times bestselling book about the other Wes Moore. You know, you were in handcuffs, so was he.
That's right.
And something happened. You're governor of Maryland. You guys got to read the book. But so this feels very personal.
Yes.
This move for you.
It is very personal. It's very personal because, you know, I think about this time that we've got here. You know, so for example, you know, I know we have 941 days left in my first term, and we're going to run it back. We're going to run for re-election in 26, but I got 941 days left. The reason I know it is because I have a clock that sits on my desk. It tells me how many days that we have left until the end of my first term. I take every day personally. I take every day seriously, where I know that, you know, I don't come from a political background or a political family. I ran for governor because I said in this time we could actually do something special. And I think about if I would have ended my time here as governor and still had people with misdemeanor cannabis convictions on their record, I would have failed. I wouldn't have fulfilled the promise. I wouldn't have understood the assignment. And so I think about the communities that I came up in. I think about the friends that I came up with. I think about the things that my family had to experience where, you know, I saw my father die in front of me when I was 3 years old because he didn't get the health care that he needed. I saw my mother get her first job that gave her benefits when I was 14 years old. And this is a woman who went on to earn a master's degree, but still did not get her first job that gave her benefits until I was 14 years old. I saw what it was like to have to deal with the consequences of broken policies and failed promises. And so the moment that we got into these seats, I told myself, and I know the entire team feels the same way, we are not going to miss this moment. We're not going to have the opportunity to infuse a sense of real hope in the lives of communities and families who for generations have had it robbed from them. And we love our communities, and I love this country too much to watch it continue to fail specific communities over and over and over again. And so this is personal. And I'm thankful that for the entire team, everybody on the team worked like it was personal. And that's why I think we got something really special and really historic done today.
So for the 175,000 people, you don't have to do anything, but I do suggest that they do go the extra yard if they want to. Voting rights, everything is back. They can apply for housing. They can get their lives back and not have the stigma. This is beautiful. Wes Moore, before you go, what did Mia and James do for you yesterday? What was Father's Day like? What was it? What did y'all do?
We had a ball. Well, actually, my son, who's 10, is now at a football camp in Florida, and our daughter, who's becoming a beautiful dancer, is now at a dancing school, the Joffrey in New York. And so I got a chance to see him on Saturday.
Wait, no breakfast?
Oh no. But my wife hooked me up. I got the greatest wife. She hooked me up. She took care of me.
All right. First Lady Dawn, yes,
that's
please
right.
take care
That's right.
to the whole family. Wes Moore, you know you have an open seat here, Governor. I know you have to run. I appreciate you coming through. Congratulations to the 175,000 people and to the folk in Maryland. You have somebody that will do what they say they will do. They will fulfill their promises, and that's all we can require of the people that we send to serve us.
Amen.
Appreciate you, Governor Moore.
I appreciate you. God bless you.
My days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the close.